one of these folks invited me to come to the snowbird community to meet with them. And I knew I was in trouble when I got there, and I was putting up a sign out in front of my vehicle by the road, and somebody pulled up the pickup and said, "Who are you?" Or no, they didn't say, "Who are you?" They said, "What are you doing here?" I said, "Well, I'm here to speak to this group." "Well, you shouldn't be here. You need to go away. You're not welcome here." I said, "Well, I'm sorry. I'm here by invitation. I'm going to follow through on that." And she said, "Well, I'm the head of this group, and I'm telling you, you are not welcome. Words to that effect." I said, "I'm sorry. I'm going to play this out." She drove off. I invited her to come back and stay with us. She drove off. She did, to her credit, come back later. The assistant director of that group, who makes a great meatloaf, by the way, invited me to have a cover dish dinner, which was the second best one I've had in western North Carolina. The first best was in Yancey County, where they had 7 kinds of home canned green beans. I love home canned green beans. 45, 50 people there. Cherokee, almost all the folks in the audience were Cherokee. Been brought up in that reservation system, which I personally believe destroys as many people as it uplifts, probably more. If you look at what's happening, I think it's, we fought. What did we fight to do in the 50s and 60s? To stop us from isolating people. And you isolate people, I think you help destroy them, but that's what a reservation does. So that's philosophical. I'm not here to destroy the reservation system, but I see a lot of harm in it. But we started talking and fielding questions and things, and this is the pivotal moment for me. Got this one group over here, this veterans group, and then here are these folks that have been brought up in this entitlement circumstance, and somebody holds up their hands and said, "What are you going to do for us?" And I said this: "I will do nothing more for you than I will do for any other group. What I will do is concentrate on the word fairness. I will fight for nothing more, nothing less than your fair share and access of that American dream. And if you're looking for somebody to give you special entitlements and to give you a special deal, you again need to vote for the other guy, because I won't do that. I'm about we." How do you think they reacted? What would you anticipate from a group like that? That they'd be upset. They were not. They clapped. And it was one of the strongest rounds of applause that I got when I was speaking. It was strong enough and moving enough that I got a little misty, because I could see that they got it. They understood that it's not about me, it's about we. It was one of the most moving moments in my campaign of the year that I've had yet. And I'm honored to have had that opportunity and to see that studying conference. Unexpected conference. Well, I'm a maverick because I stand for something. I'm an anti-candidate because I put principles before power, popularity, and other P words. I am vilified by a whole lot of folks because I don't believe that it's honest to try to seduce and pander to people. I think it's insulting to do that, and I don't do it. So will I win on that basis? I don't know. I'm not in charge of the final outcome. That's in God's hands and the voters' hands. But what I am in charge of is how hard I work, how honest I am, whether I'm sincere to those principles or not. And by the way, I mentioned principles. I am not embarrassed at all to tell anybody that I believe in the Republican Party's principles. I do not believe in how the Republican Party approaches those principles. If you look at a list of Republican Party principles, and this will tell you something. Out of the 50 states in the Union, only 7 sites, state Republican Party sites, have the Republican Party principles on those sites. If you go to the national site, you got to go through a bunch of windows to find it. The Republican Party has lost sight of its core principles. Let me tell you what they are, basically. Protect the country, which means our borders too, by the way. Be careful with other people's money and values, and limit government's intrusions on our lives. Again, little government, big people. And not everybody agrees with those principles, but that's really what they come down to. Well, that's what I'm about. the Republican Party's principles, not my principles, our principles, and I fight for them. And I promise you, I probably make more Republicans mad at me doing that than I do Democrats. And I'm willing to do that. Because as a Republican, whose yard am I responsible for cleaning up? Not the other party. My party. And that's what I'm going to go to Washington to do. To uphold our party's principles, to make sure that we stand for something, and people know we stand for something. And I'll tell you something. In a dangerous world, and we're living in a dangerous world right now, economic dangers, physical dangers, social dangers, you name it. In a dangerous world, people become more conservative. Well, I want to make sure that when those people become more conservative, and most of you all will, that's a bold statement, most of you all will, and I'll tell you why in just a second, that there's a party around that stands for something that you can count on. It stands for something besides power and self-service. Because power and self-service are going to rob America of its future and rob you of your future. If I were you guys, I'd be furious at people like me. People with gray hair, I'm 55. I'd be furious because we're robbing you. We're borrowing, we're flying today with a plan to pay later. We're dumping it on you. Everything from Social Security to our national debt to the other entitlement programs. Every person in this audience has a debt of roughly $500,000, a little less than that, not much less. Roughly a debt of $500,000 that you owe. You don't have a house to show for that. You don't have a bank account to show for that. You don't have anything special other than an obligation. That's wrong. We should not do that to you. And as you figure out the deal, I think you will get angry and frustrated as you go forward when you realize what we've done or are doing to you. And my hope is you will translate that not into rage, but into positive action and start trying to recapture what America is about. I see America as a beacon for the world. And I've been in most of the world. I've been in communist countries. I've been in a variety of places. I've tried to see what this world is like. It's not all bad. But America, as it's designed, represents an extraordinary exception to the rule. And I do not think we should betray that light, because I believe we're needed in the world. Now, I don't want to keep babbling on about things. I know that there's probably one or two I missed there, but probably the best way to get to them is just to throw the door open to you all and take some questions. And I'd be grateful if you put me on the spot. And I don't mean just questions from conservative Republicans. How about anybody with a different take on things? Yes, ma'am.
With your views on limited government and personal lives, how do you feel about Roe v. Wade?
Do what now?
With your views on limited government and people's lives, how do you feel about Roe v. Wade?
I am a pro-life believer at the bottom of my heart. I believe life begins at conception. That said, I do not believe the federal government should be involved in this issue. I believe it's a states' rights issue. If a vote comes before me, I'm going to vote pro-life. But again, this is one of the, I'm so glad you raised that question, because I think it's one of the mistakes that our party makes. We'll say to everybody, oh, we're not big government. But when it comes to an issue that we like, we're big government. And I think you either got to be sincere to that or not. You're either big government or you're not. You don't get to pick and choose. So it should be a states' rights issue. It's been kidnapped by the court system, kidnapped by the federal government. I think that's wrong. Same thing's true of our educational system.